Well, today is the day. I'm going to show you how I am upgrading or modernizing the Raymarine Navionics system here on Garuda. You know, I think probably everybody wants to have the latest, coolest, sexiest equipment on board. Well, at least I do, anyway. So, but you know, if you've owned an old boat, you know exactly what it feels like to inherit someone else's kind of hybrid brands, bird nest of wiring, just spoiled dreams, if you will, of all of the folks that came before you trying to put together a system with what then was probably the latest technology, but obviously isn't today. So, not exactly certain what we're going to discover, but you know, let's get into it.
We spent decades chasing the American dream, only to realize that working more to have more wasn't exactly the dream we expected to be living. Together, we walked away from it all to rediscover what's really necessary to live a rewarding life. Inspired by other YouTubers, we bought a fixer-upper sailboat in the hopes of discovering the world anew. Just as soon as we learned to sail.
Here's our mission, and maybe the constraints surrounding that mission. We want to use as much of the existing components as we possibly can, assuming that they're all operational. Mostly because we're trying to save the money. So let me also mention that we are not sponsored by anyone. Every component that you see, every product that you see here, we've had to source, we've had to pay for normally. We're just normal everyday boat owners and retail customers. So it should be the same experience you would have trying to solve this problem. Here's the real goal. We want to be able to get as much information as we possibly can, or have as much information as we can available to us right here in the cockpit at the helm. The way the boat was originally wired, everything went down to the nav station with just a little bit of data coming through here. I'm trying to move all of that data to this location. Here's what we want to tie together. The multifunction display is the pretty part, just a computer screen that's assimilating all of the data from different sources. So we need to know our depth. We need to know our speed through water. That's a different instrument. We want to make sure it's feeding through here. I've been getting depth readings at 50 feet, at 14 feet, at 30 feet, at different, without ever moving the boat. So we know that system's not working. 2 is radar. So we would love to be able to tie together a radar system that shows us targets and weather to make sure we don't collide with anything and we see things that are approaching us. We have an autopilot system that is standalone, also not talking to this system. And lastly, we want to tie together a traffic avoidance system, or an AIS system, that would show us identities, paths, directions of other boats in the area, so that we can not only avoid a collision, but we can also talk to them or refer to them by name. So in any case, we're trying to tie all of those things together, and if we can do that with our existing multiple brand equipment, then we can look to expand the system or add things that we would like to continue to grow it or give us the data that we want. So we got to kind of dive in and see what's working and what's not.
Okay, this is the Axiom 9. Well, let me see if I can get that. Yep. This is the Axiom 9 RV, which I think stands for Real View. It just means it's more than just a chart plotter. In other words, I should have a high-speed connection as a port on the back of the unit. And this is a fairly modern piece of equipment. You can go out and buy it retail today. And let me just bring a chart up so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. I don't have a subscription card. Okay, so I'm going to just zoom in to the marina that I'm currently in. You can kind of see where the boat is. I can see the channel. Here's where I begin. I thought, all right, well, we want to make sure that the depth is right, and now that actually seems accurate. We didn't have great data before. This has a GPS unit built into it, so it doesn't have any external GPS. So it would be nice to have some of those things. Of course, not having an actual chart does make a difference. Okay, along with this system, what we had was a separate analog radar system. So I want to make certain I kind of make this distinction. Analog just means, you know, it wasn't digital. It was a standalone piece of equipment. It had its own monitor down on the nav station and a radome that was up on the mizzen. So I was able to replace that unit. We went to a nautical flea market, and there just happened to be an installer there who had taken a more modern digital version, a quantum radar, off of a powerboat. So we ordered some new cabling and got it up on the mast. Quantum is a Wi-Fi system, so we are going to wire this in data-wise as well, but for the time being, I'll just show you as it comes up here. It's connecting directly from this to the Wi-Fi connection up on the mizzen mast. And here we go. We have powered the system on now, which we did from here, from Wi-Fi, and we should be looking at some targets inside of a mile that will be showing up every time that radar sweeps. We'll zoom in a little bit. I don't know that we're going to tell a whole lot from these targets. I'm in a marina with pretty much boats everywhere all the way around me. So I know that the new radar system is working, or at least the new radome is working on our Wi-Fi signal. I still am going to wire that up with a high-speed switch. The switch is on back order just like everything these days because it's got a chip in it, I'm sure, but once that comes in, I'll catch you up at least on that install. In the meantime, I want to make sure all of our old instruments continue to speak to the new Axiom, or to this Axiom system. So let's start at the beginning, and that is the depth. I'm currently showing 26.1, which makes me feel pretty good, at least depth-wise, but I have the depth, and then I'm also going to have speed through water. That we will want to look at. Let's try to bring up both here and see what comes up. You can get a little bit of where we are and what's going on. So normally we would see our depth and our speed as we move along. Of course, I'm not moving at the moment, but I want to make sure we're getting a good reading here. So let's go to that instrument. Okay, there's the transducer right there. You can see the cable that comes off of it, and that's showing us depth. Just a little bit in front of it is the paddle wheel that's giving us the speed through the water. So what I'm after is the networking. You can tell we have a reading, and I'm just going to assume that the instruments are good for now. But what I want to do is trace this cable here that's coming off. We'll just use the depth sounder for now. So we're coming off this depth sounder with a cable, and if we trace that cable back, it leaves here. We get to see it. I've got a flashlight here, but it comes back right there next to the mast. We're able to continue to follow it against the wall, over through next to the transmission, and ultimately through the engine compartment. Which brings us to this nest of wires here. Now for now, I'm just going to show you this is it. And actually, if we follow this down, let me see if I can grab the other end of it. Okay, if we follow it down, there's actually a label on this. I don't know if that shows, that says transducer cable. So that's easy to follow. Here's what I want you to see is, look at all this junk, right? This one's not even plugged in. This came from the old radar. And this is a SeaTalk 1 cable. All right, this was the original network that Raymarine used. And up here, there's actually a block of SeaTalk 1 cables coming in. Now, SeaTalk 1 was the first iteration of their networking system, and not to be outdone with their naming, SeaTalk 2 followed. And then from there, we go to SeaTalk NG, which I think is next generation, but if not, it should be, so that's what I'm calling it. So we want to bridge this system. Now, what you're looking at here in this control block actually is part of the autopilot, but look at the mess here, right? All right, we got to continue to follow the transducer wire, though. It's going back here behind the lazarette, so we're going to get this cleaned out and crawl underneath. Oh, sorry, my back. Now the lazarette is empty, so let's get in and see where the end of that transducer cable goes. All right, well, this is the cable. Looks like it's going right up into the helm directly, which is not what I was expecting. So let's move on back to the helm. We'll take apart the nav pod and see where that's going. Okay, so this is the nav pod. If you haven't done this yourself, these screws require a special tool because this is supposed to be a secure fastener. So then I had to order the nav pod tool in order to get in there to start with. Here is the back of our Axiom 9. Alright, so here we go behind the Axiom. And I filmed this yesterday, and I was so far off, I'm doing this again. So let me point this out. Alright, so this is what we have on the back of the Axiom. This is the transducer coming in. Now I have learned that Axiom will accept more than one transducer. The thing is, I only have one, so I'm not going to mess with this. This actually is my depth gauge coming in. In any case, it doesn't matter. Transducer's fine. And that brings us to our next outlet here, which is a split outlet, and we should have power, which I'm assuming is what's going to be behind all of this electric tape. And then this is a NEMA 2000. So we're going to have to do a little homework on that, because that should go to our C-Talk NG. So that's about to be next. But just so I finish this off, this is an accessory plug, which actually is like a micro USB, and all I can see online is that attaches to a drone. I don't have that kind of budget. And then this, of course, is going to be Raymarine NG. So this is the high-speed network. This is essentially what a Cat5 cable would be in your house, and we don't have anything attached to that, but that ultimately will be a radar. And I'm going to change that around a little bit, assuming I can run a cable through here. Oh, I will also add that we got to do an upgrade that I think yeah, here we go. We got a micro SD card behind this that will allow us to do a software upgrade, because keep in mind this thing has been sitting for, I don't know what, 3 years or so. So there's some updating here to do. I've done a little bit of trial and error here, just so because I happen to have a bunch of cabling. Let me show you kind of what I'm looking at. This is a Raynet high-speed cable. I just plugged it into the back to make sure that actually connected. You know, the concern, of course, is that I don't think this is going to get through that hole. I need to follow this old 183 back, which I'm certain is going to be AIS. So we need to see how this, with any luck, this is going to a junction box of some kind, and all of this wiring can take place at that end. Well, we're back down in the hole. So that gray cable actually goes around, turns into this black cable. It looks like I've got some kind of a backbone up here. Okay, well, never mind. Now that we got that clipped, we had a lot of slack on it. I don't know if that you can read that. Maybe it'll autofocus, but the front of this says NEMA 2000 to NEMA 183, so I think that solved it for us. Here's the thing, though. I don't know which end is which, but I'm not sure it matters. So if it's NEMA, let's see, it should be NEMA. No, it's both ways. So no matter what this was, clearly that's been changed, spliced, or otherwise cut. We can almost see the wires through there to turn that into a 183. And then the other end has been spliced with 2 inputs. So I have a feeling these 2 back here are coming from the AIS. So I've tried to look at the markings on the wire. I'm kind of following it up through that pass-through. What a mess, huh? Okay, all right, well, there's a little more to do. We'll keep crawling around. All right, I haven't sorted it out, but I took off about a yard of electric tape, and how do you like this mess? I guess we got to figure out what's actually connected and what is bullshit, huh? So I don't know, that looked like a shielded cable. Alright, well, the hunt continues. Never easy when you buy an old boat. I'm going to wrap up the day today, but I was working on the Raynet. That was that high-speed cable. That's this one here. I managed to fish it through, but to be honest with you, I had to cut the cable, slide it back through, so I'll show you the other end. So it's coming out the lazarette. I hope you can see that. I've had to kind of solder splice each one of those. And now I'm going to put that together and kind of heat shrink it all into one. Wrap it as best I can in its old case. I want to try to make this kind of thin without kinking too much. This is just a piece of heat shrink. You just kind of carefully slide this over. But I'm going to hedge toward one side here. And then I'll use a little bit of tape. Heat shrink. Alright, well, that should hold everything together now. That should keep us waterproof once that cools down. Okay, we're taking a break from searching down all of these wires, and we've wrestled up a paddleboard and some kayaks, and we're going to join some friends and go and explore a little bit of Dove Creek here in Key Largo. But this is a good time for us to remind you that it would really help us out if you would subscribe to our channel. It's totally free, and it gives us a little cred there with YouTube. Dove Creek is located just behind our marina on southern Key Largo. In fact, we could easily tow our gear by dinghy and come in from the ocean. But today, we chose to carry it through the neighborhood and slowly paddle out to the ocean and back. Mangroves are one of South Florida's true natives. They thrive in this tropical environment because they have the ability to obtain fresh water from salt water. Some varieties secrete excess salt through their leaves, for example, while others can block the absorption of salt at their roots. There's an estimated 600,000 acres of mangrove forest contributing to the overall health of the state's southern coastal zone and even beyond. It's a fairly elaborate ecosystem, cycling organic and chemical elements for further use. Worldwide, there's more than 50 species of mangroves that exist, but of the 3 species that are found in Florida, it's the red mangrove that's probably the most well-known. Plus, it's pretty easily identified by its tangled reddish roots called prop roots. It's earned it the nickname walking trees because they often appear to just be standing or walking on the surface of the water. Mangroves can get quite dense, and these elaborate root systems literally hold down the coastline. They serve as part wave dampener, storm barrier, even retaining wall. But I think what's the coolest about it is all of the animals that find shelter either in the roots or even in the branches of the mangroves. The tops serve as rookeries or nesting areas for a wide variety of coastal birds, such as the brown pelican or even the roseate spoonbill. But perhaps their greatest contribution is that they serve as a nursery for the reef system. In fact, most everything that lives out on the reef was born right here in the mangroves, making it a fun and interesting place to go exploring.
Alright, day 3. Done a lot of homework. Figured out pretty much wrong about everything. Let me tell you what I've been up to this morning, and I'll try to catch you up some. For starters, tore up all the floorboards, trying to search for cables that are in the main trunk that extend from the mast, that first hole that I had shown you earlier, that has our speed through water and the other transducer in it. Also found the Fluxgate compass. Sounds like something out of what's the Future movie? I don't even Back to the Future. Sounds like something right out of the Back to the Future. In any case, that's kind of how my morning has gone. It's this bundle of wiring in here that I have undone and tried to trace every one of them. This is the transducer, for example. This is the Fluxgate capacitor. No, that's not really it, but you know what I mean. And I can't find the other two. And I'm looking everywhere on this thing, and it turns out right below the transmission, which is right below me, it changes to the other side of the boat, and holy look, they're right here. I've already labeled one of them. I think you can see it there. And those follow down and go back behind the cabinet. So you think I would have seen this before, but look, it turns out there are 2 wires in the back underneath the sinks. That seems to be going to a NEMA 2000 backbone, not a 183 backbone. But let's go find the other end of this. The Fluxgate, which is part of the autopilot, as much as I'm making light of it, should be an old SeaTalk 1, and I think I know where that comes out. So I'm going to go try to find that first, and then I'll catch you up on what I've been up to. Boat life. Oh, are you kidding me? A half hour later. Okay, so guess where it ends up. I started right down here, traced everything through the cabinets, back up through the wall. Look where it ended up. It's here. It's not even plugged into anything.
And look, if that isn't suspect enough, let me turn the light on. Ah, look, it turns out there's a Data Marine instrument back here. Okay, so we've brought power in. It's a little dark, I'm sorry about that. I should have brought a light down, but we brought a new power cable in and cleaned up that connection. That was the old bird nest. I hope it's kind of showing okay. This was the old bird nest of cables. Just used some rubber shrink wrap after putting that together again. But that's powering that NGW ISO or the NGW1. That's the AIS system. And from there, what we've done is just gone right back to the NEMA 2000 backbone. And I'm just going to do a quick dry run up on the Axiom and make sure everything is working. So on the Axiom, you can go to a networking tab and it will show you that everything is plugged in and that things are communicating. From there, we'll replace this backbone. All right, and here's my my mock-up. I've just kind of put this on a board. Well, actually, I may just end up mounting this board, but what we've got is 2 switches here, 2 5-way connectors on the new the Raymarine NG, or CTalk NG rather, and I have labeled things coming in. We've done one quick add, and that is I've attached an external GPS, which just as a mock-up is sitting on top of that covered winch. But we got a 5-way switch, and then we've put a powered switch in that will allow us to convert the old CTalk 1 onto our network. And we have 1 power cable coming into it. This is just a bridge between the two. The blues are backbone cables, the whites are the spurs, and you'll see we have the Axiom hooked up, AIS hooked up, and a new GPS receiver. So with this turned on, we should be getting the exact same readings on the Axiom. So let's go look at it on the other end. Alright, so powered up the Axiom using the new NG hub, and we should see the same things. We go to settings, and we'll go to network, and look at that. We've got the Axiom 9, the Quantum Radar, the CTalk converter reporting, as well as the new GPS and that NGW1, so that means AIS is coming in as well. So there you go. Looks like we have made the conversion. Now it's just a matter of mounting everything in place. We'll label the remaining wires and go ahead and start zip tying things where they need to go. Alright, so we've got the board mounted right up here. And right behind my head is the high-speed switch. So there's still a couple of things left to do. I really intended to get most of it done this week, although we designed this with a little bit of expansion. So we need to be running the data cable still from the radar back down here. That's actually going into the switch there behind my head. And the high-speed switch will allow us to expand to multiple Axioms. So if our budget really allows for it, we would add a second Axiom down there to the nav station. So we still got some nav charts, got a couple more things to do, but I'll keep you updated in episodes to come. Well, it's been 6 months since our original install, and I feel like I kind of owe you a little bit of an update. We did end up installing a second multifunction display here at the nav station, which actually has worked out great. The only issue I've actually had with it, I've moved to Navionics as our charts or for our mapping. And sometimes when I make a route or I'm updating my maps, I have a hard time pairing the Navionics from my phone or my iPad to the Raymarine system over Wi-Fi. But I'm not certain if that's a Navionics issue or a Raymarine issue. I don't want to put too much blame in any one place. I will say, if you follow any of the Raymarine blogs online, you'll know there's been some issues with software upgrades and things like that as we've moved to Lighthouse 4. So in any case, the operating system and Navionics, that might end up being a separate episode all on its own. But I will also tell you that we have installed a wireless wind system with a readout there in the cockpit. It's completely solar and is independent, and we have really enjoyed having that on board. Oh, and the network switch actually came in. This is the HS5 from Raymarine. This was on back order for, I don't know, 8 or 9 months maybe, and we had gone with an industrial switch. And frankly, I haven't changed it out because it's working, but I do have this one on board. I haven't even taken it out of the packaging, so I have that one on board should I run into an issue. But we have run the cabling from the radome down to it, and then both of the MFDs are wired to that same switch, so they share all the data. Anything I do on one shows up on the other, which is great. So the reason we added this, kind of coming full circle, is I can sit at the nav station and program what I need to, and I can see it out there. So in any case, that's probably the quick update. I'm also realizing that I didn't actually make a list of any of the equipment that I found or I've used on board, so I'm going to do that with some of the stuff and leave it down in the show notes. Let me just give you the disclaimer. I'm not affiliated with anyone at all. There's no cut of any of that that is coming to me. So once again, it's just how I discover things online. By the way, if you end up doing this job, will you maybe post some photos or leave me a comment or tell me the types of things you're running into on your boat? I doubt that I'm alone, but sometimes it makes me feel better to hear from you. So with that in mind, listen, if you've made it this far and you've watched the whole video, please consider subscribing to the video. Really helps us out. Give us a thumbs up, tell us you like it, and we'll see you in coming weeks.